everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Geek Within. I have with me Sean Bugler. He's a cloud architect at the Metropolitan Transportation Commission in the San Francisco Bay Area, which some days I wish I was there. He's a speaker, a technology evangelist, and we both share common interests around Microsoft technologies, especially when it comes to the public sector space. So Sean, for those who have not met you or don't know you, please, tell us a bit about your background, where you're from, who you are, all the nitty-gritty details that make you, you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, first of all. So as you mentioned, Sean, I'm a cloud architect with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. We're based in the San Francisco Bay Area. My job, the cloud architect is such a cerebral title. Really, my job is about taking the various software as a service applications, platform as a services, and tying them together in a way that makes sense for our users. We don't need everybody to be an expert in technology. We need them to understand their specific use cases and how those technologies can apply to them. So it's really about tying those together in a way that makes sense. I've been doing that for I think we're coming up on 3 years. Prior to that, I was a technology and collaboration consultant for a company based out here in San Francisco called Learn It. Worked with companies like Walmart.com and Levi's and Gap and BlackRock. And really my job there was everything from somebody would get hired and say they were proficient in data analysis and they were lying, and I would come in as somebody to help clean that up, or large scale migrations to Office 365, large scale migrations to, at the time, Skype for Business, things like that. So I did that for, I think, 3 years. Before that, I ran Foot Lockers, which was super lucrative. I still kick myself for leaving that behind, but onward and upward. I did that for 7 or 8 years, I think, spanning between here in the Bay Area as well as North Carolina. But really, I think starting at the beginning of it, born in Virginia, my dad was in the military, the Marines more specifically. Oh. So early childhood in Southern California, I think maybe like 3 or 4 different places. We bopped around a little bit. And then from 5th grade through high school, we lived in Okinawa, Japan, which was incredible. I, as any child would, didn't appreciate that experience for what it was. Look back on all of that so fondly. For anybody that's not been to Okinawa, could not recommend it highly enough. It is not the same experience as mainland Japan. It's almost unfair when people travel to Japan and they're like, where should I go? Because Okinawa is just, I would say go spend all of your time in Okinawa.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so a lot of stuff happened in the middle of there, but that's kind of the cliff notes for you.
Wow, Okinawa. I would never have guessed that. I would never guess you were Virginian. I live in Virginia.
Yeah, admittedly, I was only there for a year, and it was very, very small. Fort Belvoir was where I was born. And but it's native Virginian at heart.
Wow, and I'm right there in the same neighborhood as Fort Belvoir. That's pretty awesome.
Right on.
And yeah, I would agree with you in terms of Okinawa. I have not been able to visit it myself, so close as I got with Korea, but I know a number of people who, once they saw it, they didn't want to leave. So
yeah, I mean, the weather is fantastic. It's very subtropical. It's, they're Hawaii ostensibly. Tourism is starting to boom out there a little bit though. So get in there while you can.
Yeah. Well, so I'm a fellow military brat as you. So based on that, moving around and experience different cultures in different parts of the country, how did that bring you into the IT career? Well, actually, you didn't start an IT career. You went to Foot Locker. So what brought IT into your life?
Yeah, I think, I think back to, because it wasn't obvious in a lot of ways, but I think that there were indicators that I appreciated technology, early on. There's a photo of me in the 5th grade, literally the first year that I had moved to Japan. And we were learning about transistors and electrical currents and motors. And of course, if you're fortunate, you get to be in a classroom where you've got the box of wires right. and alligator clamps, and you can tie all this together and wrap it around a battery, and you can build stuff. So there's a photo of me with a terrible coif, very close to this one, holding this giant platform of what was, a circuit and a bridge and a switch. And I was so proud of myself. So little indicators that I was right. born a tinkerer. I've always loved to tinker with things. And I think that expands beyond technology. It's really about understanding something and what makes it tick And more importantly, how do I make it work for me? You know,
Wow.
so that's kind of been the heart and soul of all of it.
So based on that though, then, so I'm assuming there was some transition, you know, you worked at Foot Locker, you're doing well for yourself. There's something that made you said, though, let me just jump in and do this for a career. How did that happen?
Well, you know, I think everybody would describe, anybody who's worked in retail would describe it as the best job they've ever had. The hours are great. Love working holidays. But that said, I think I always knew that it wasn't what I necessarily wanted to do for the rest of my life, you know? So I think really what it came down to was opportunity. I will forever and always say that I've been incredibly lucky in my life, particularly in the last 10 years or so, to have been in the right place at the right time with the right skill set or the ability to present myself in such a way that I was able to take advantage of those opportunities. And there's work that comes after that, but so much of it was luck. You know, when it came to the transition from Foot Locker to Learn It, it was a holiday party. It was being at a holiday party with a friend of mine, and his girlfriend had bailed at the last minute for a company holiday party, and he brought me along as a plus one. The holiday party had an open bar, and I'm a sucker for an open bar.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
All the more power to those who are sober. I respect you. I have a deep appreciation for the commitment that comes with it, but I enjoy an open bar. And yeah, so it was being there. It was getting to know the executives of this relatively small company. And that itself didn't materialize in a job, but it was kind of the first knock on the door that made them aware of who I was. And so a couple of months later, at a separate event, ended up bumping into another of the executives at Learn It, and a couple of drinks were had. And, you know, in the process, we talk a little bit about what it was that I did at Foot Locker. Like, I managed the store. So it was a lot of understanding people and trying to, you know, meet a need, trying to accomplish a goal, even if either the tools that you have in front of you or the resources that you have in front of you aren't exactly what you need to get the job done. And how do you get creative with that? And how do you get people to, you know, work in their own best interest, even if it's not necessarily what they want to do? You know, there's a lot of that. Foot Locker being retail and retail being retail, you get a lot of younger kids, you know, whether they're in college or they're about to go into college, or like that. The audience of the employee is definitely one where they're still figuring things out for themselves. And so there's a lot of psychology that goes into maximizing that and being smart about it. And you can definitely brute force your way through it, as many do. But I really did pride myself in trying to think about that entire experience strategically. So I'm saying all of that, probably less articulate than I did just now, because I'm down a couple of drinks, but it mentioned that they were looking for instructors to help do some of their basic training classes. So teaching people how to analyze data with Excel and write a good Word document and mail merge, really basic stuff. You know, somebody who's working at the bus depot and wants to pick up and brush up on some technology. So hey, I auditioned because it was so much more about the show than it was about the substance. I think you can give most people the checklist of teach them how to type into a cell, teach them how to send an email. And it was really about, can you deliver it in a way that's compelling? So I was able to make the case that I was a good fit for that. And from there, and this has been true for every job that I've held, once I'm there, I work my ass off. Feel free to bleep that. I work really hard because one, I'm a workaholic, but two, once I really find the angle through which I can connect with the job emotionally, you know, when I can align my values with the values of an organization, nothing can stop me. And that was definitely true here. It was every opportunity that I could take to learn a new technology or learn a new strategy or learn a new implementation method. I was first in line. I was the first to raise my hand. I was the first to, you know, really put my foot forward. And so in a lot of different ways, I became an invaluable part of this organization. By the time I had left, I was the dedicated resource for the top 5% of our business.
Wow. So
it was, you know, BlackRock, it was Walmart.com, it was Genentech. You know, when we had projects that involved them, either I was being asked for by name, or if it was a new business that was going to be a big business, I was the person that they brought up as like the facade of the organization, at least from the technical side. You know, obviously we had sales and all that fun stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, so it was a lot of, it starts with opportunity. But then I was really glad to have the opportunity to dig in and put in the work and build something from that. So all the stuff that I learned from there kind of just evolved into this mishmash of knowledge that I've got now.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. That's a great story. And you're right. I mean, the luckiness of all of us, right? And the opportunities, the people we meet, sometimes you just never know what's going to be. That's why we tell everybody, when we mentor the new people, hey, build your network. It's the people you know, right? It's the people you know and the relationships you build that really make a difference.
It's true.
So, all right. So interesting. So let's say, somebody decided to give you the power for the day, the big power, right? We all wish we had in IT to do the thing we need change, the big change, the change that will improve whatever, right? So for you, what would that change be?
I think genuinely the thing that has to change, that I'd love to change myself and that I try to change myself, is to imbue a little more empathy, a lot more empathy into the IT space. And that exists in so many different layers. You know, I think about the empathy for the person that's providing a service. You know, like it's really easy for us that are technologically savvy, that are the ones in the know, to take that for granted that we know. You know, I think that my time as a consultant and a trainer, that's followed me. The appreciation that I wasn't far off from the person that was asking the question of left click versus right click. And, you know, that you've got to have that empathy. But I also think that the empathy has to exist within an organization as well. You know, and I think that some of that ties into our goals with diversity and inclusion. I think that some of that ties into the bigger goals that we have for ourselves as an organization. But it really does start with the empathy at the core of it all. So if I could change anything, it would be to really make that a core tenet of every organization.
Wow. I wish you could make that change. That'd be amazing.
And furthermore, as Miss America, I would.
Oh, that's great. Okay. So where do you see yourself in the next, 3-5 years, or where do you see the field you're working in, right? I know you're doing a lot in the no code or low code space. Where do you see that, or yourself, or both, going here in the, in the near future or semi near future?
Sure. So, I mean, I'm 2 years into my, or 3 years nearly into my time with the organization. So I got another 2 years before my pension vests, which is a thing that still exists in the public sector. Yeah. Beyond that, I don't know. One thing I love about my job is that no 2 days are the same. So that I'm constantly solving for new challenges, and the rate at which change is happening around the public sector and within it, and how we're positioning ourselves is super exciting. Like there's so much opportunity there, and there's so much opportunity for me to have impact across a region of, millions of people. So I don't necessarily know where I'll be in the long term. I do know that I'm really grateful for the people I've met over the last couple of years, yourself as an example, John Levesque. There's so many people that I've met that I'm glad to have met that have afforded me the opportunities to do more than just my job. You know what I mean? That still that let me plug into the spaces that I'm genuinely interested in. You know, you mentioned the low code and no code spaces. Right. I'm so emphatically excited about where that space is going. Like there's so much potential there. You know, coming back to the conversation about empathy, there's so much that people can do to help themselves if they have the tools to do it. And the barrier right now is the understanding of technology. But it doesn't have to be the case. You know, as the barrier gets lower and lower for people to do more and more, to automate more, to build more, to create more, we're going to see really, really incredible things that go beyond, I was able to take an attachment and strip it out of an email and put it into OneDrive. We're going to see genuine innovation in the way that people and that job roles actually function within organizations. I could not be more excited about where that's going. And we're just scratching the surface. You know, it's not just Microsoft Google is investing into this. Slack is investing into this. There are companies that solely exist in this space, Zapier, and If This Then That are just examples that we're all chipping away at this giant ice block together. So to continue to be in and around that space and to see it evolve and to be a part of that evolution and selling it to the people who are skeptical about it, I'll be there every step of the way, regardless of whether it's at this job or just as a part of the community.
That's amazing. Well, Sean, I want to thank you so much for giving me this time today, for this conversation, for telling me more about you. I mean, every conversation I have, I learn a little bit more, and I'm grateful for the friendship that's growing between us. So I look forward to working with you in the public sector space.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. This is fun.